In this video, we're going to work on organizer reviews. This is one of the last functionalities we need to implement, because once the organizer hosts events, people would want to review the organizer, not reviewing the events, because the events will go in the past tense and will be passed, and nobody wants to see a review for something that happened in the past. So a review towards the organizer makes more sense. Now, you guys, throughout this process of building this project, you have seen me sometimes creating user interface before we do anything else. That's really because I don't necessarily have a requirement document for me. I don't have a design. I'm just creating this on the fly. When I do have a design, when I do have a functional design, use cases laid out for me, I tend to create the use cases, the services first, before we focus on the. But right now, we're just looking at the screen. We don't know where that review happens. So therefore, let's go ahead and try to create something so that we can use that as at least as a mockup to see where the functionality is going to happen. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. And what we want to do is to create a slice. And this slice, I'm going to call it View Organizer Reviews. Okay, so creating a new folder. And I'm going to say View Organizer Reviews. Okay. And in this slice, we're going to have a component. And this component is going to be placed on the View Event component, right? So this one, somewhere here on the top where we show, right now, we show the event title. We also need to show, I think above this HR element here, we want to show the name of the organizer and then the reviews from all of the other past users, past attendees. So we are going to then create reusable components that are page component for this slice. So let's go ahead and create a component, which is a reader component, and I'm going to call it average reviews component. So what do we call this? We call it View Organizer Reviews. View Organizer Reviews. Yeah, for this particular component, I'm not going to call it View Organizer Reviews because I'm thinking that View Organizer Reviews component is going to actually be a page component where you're going to target one single organizer and then you're going to see all of the reviews for that single organizer. But this reader component is going to be the one that is placed on the view event page where you see just the average reviews for that single organizer. Okay, let's go ahead and try to implement this thing. Because this is a reusable component, so we don't need to have a title or a page directive. So let's just go ahead and try to create whatever the visual is. I'm going to use Flexbox, right? Dflex. I'm going to say Dflex. And because I'm trying to align things properly, easily, I'm going to use, maybe this is not the correct class name. It should be align items, and I want it to be aligned at the center. And I also want to have a margin at the bottom. I'm going to use 2 and see how it looks like. Okay. And now I want to display the organizer name. So I can have a span to display it. And the font weight is going to be bold. And I'm going to create a margin at the end to the right hand side, because after that margin, right, because we have a name here and then we have a margin, after the margin is going to be the reviews, the average reviews. Okay, so that's why we have this. And now here we want to display the organizer's name. So what are we going to be passed into this? We're going to have a parameter. And as you can see, it always happens like this. Let me close the solution and reopen so that I can get, you can see the color coding back. Everything else that comes with it. So I'm going to have a organizer ID to be passed into this particular component here. And I don't need this initialization here. Now, once it is passed in, I'm going to override the on parameter set async. Right here, I'm going to use the organizer ID to grab the organizer. I'm going to do that. But of course, I'm going to have our organizer declared here, and then this is going to be control dot to import the names. Here we're going to do the organizer, and this thing says that maybe let's comment this out. Okay, let's finish our markup first. I have an organizer already, so here I can just say that organizer and then with question mark. If it's not there, the name's not going to be displayed. And after that, we're going to have another div. So inside this class, let's actually close the div first, right? And then we have a class, and again this is going to be a flex box, and we're going to again align to the center. So align items center, right? And within it, we want to show an average rating. So you see that it's already trying to do this for me. So let's accept it and then try to see whether this is acceptable or not. I don't think I'm going to have the title like this. I can just display the stars, 5-star, 4-star, or whatever stars. I really don't need to have the title average rating there. Now, I'm going to have a div instead of a span, and the class, I'm going to create my own CSS class, and I'm going to just call it stars. And within this, let's clear this up. I'm going to have to use for loop, and it's already trying to do this for me. So let's delete this and close it properly. Now it gives me an error. Okay, nothing, no error now. Okay, so it's going to loop from, not from 0, it's going to loop from 1 all the way to 5, okay, inclusive. And each time it loops through, it's going to create a star for me. This time it's a span, and let's close the span right here. Okay, let me minimize this solution explorer. We have another star class. In addition to the stars class on the div, we have a star class. And then we're going to check whether the I is smaller or equal to the average rating. So therefore, we're going to have a average rating, and then this is going to be cleared. So if I is less or equal to the average rating, then this is going to be filled or selected. I'm going to call it selected. Okay, so this is another class. Basically, this is a class name, and this means that the star needs to be highlighted to become golden, right? And otherwise, if it's greater, then there's no class. And in order to show the star, I'm going to just use a code here. So it's 9733. So this is going to be displayed as a star if I finish it with a semicolon here. Okay. All right. So this is good. We have a div here, and here we're going to have a link here. Okay. So this link, when user clicks on, is going to take the user to the actual page where it sees all of the reviews for this particular organizer. Okay, and again, I'm gonna have some class here. So margin at the beginning, and then we're gonna text mute. So this is gonna be grid out text, and it goes to, I'm gonna give it a pass before we actually create it. So here we're gonna have the organizer ID here, right? And then the reviews. So this basically takes us to something about the organizer, right? And what is that about the organizer? It is reviews about the organizer. And then here we want to show the review count, like how many reviews do we have, right? So this is going to be similar to, you see, this is similar to Amazon, where you have the stars first, and then you have the number of reviews. Because if I say this is 5-star, but then there's only 1 review, right? It tells the fact, not the story. So that's why we not only want to display the stars, the average rating, but also want to show the users about how many reviews did the organizer get. So I'm going to show not only the average rating, but also we're going to create another one, and we're going to say this is the total reviews. Okay, and we'll come over here and we say total reviews, and then we say reviews. Okay, now before we do anything about trying to load the information about the organizer, right, we need to place this on the view event component here, so which is this one, and then so that we can see how it looks like. So I'm going to say organizer average review component, and let's take away the namespace here, and then here let's import a namespace first, and then here we're going to pass in the organizer ID, which we do have inside actually we can just write this without the @ sign. The organizer ID is right here in the event, and then we just close it. Okay, so at this moment, we can try to run it and see how this thing looks like. Because right now, we don't have any reviews, and therefore it's going to be showing 0 count and then stars without anything. Okay, let's take a look. So this is incorrect. Oh, that's why. That's the reason why this is showing like this is because we didn't actually create a class for this yet. When I say class, I refer to the CSS styles, right? So let's actually go inside the www root and go inside apps CSS. The reason why I choose to create it here is because we are going to have multiple places where we want to have the stars going to be displayed, and therefore this is going to be shared. So I don't want to use CSS isolation where I have to duplicate the CSS styles here. So I'm going to say this is custom CSS for organizer ratings. Okay, and we want to have stars class. So this is applied at the outside, and the font size, we can say, let's say 18 pixels, and turn display as flex, and align items, right, to the center. And then for the single star, this is where we want to control the look and feel of a single star. I'm going to say color. So what you saw just now is black. You want to be light gray to highlight the fact that there's no reviews whatsoever. And then when the star is highlighted, it's already trying to generate this to me. Remember, I call it selected. I didn't call it filled. And then the color would be gold. Let's try to use gold. I don't know whether the color that it generated is better than mine, but I think this is just gold. Let's use gold. So now let's do a reload and see whether it picks up the style. Looks like it doesn't. So let's run it again. Hopefully it can now pick up the styles. See, it picks up the style now. The stars are grayed out and it shows 0 reviews, and I can click on this. Of course, it's gonna go to HTTP 404 because the page doesn't exist yet, but I like the look and feel. We can keep it right here. At this moment, what we need to do is actually we need to create the entities for storing the reviews, and so that here inside this component we just created, we can actually load the average rating and total reviews, right? So we're going to go ahead and do the actual work here. Let's go to data, go to entities, and we are going to create our organizer review component, not component class here. And this is going to correspond to our database table. So let's call it organizer review. Okay, and here first of all it's going to have an ID, and it's trying to generate this to me. I'm going to accept it, and then we're going to customize it. So this is organizer review ID. I don't want to just call it ID. I just want to have this naming, but you can actually choose to just use ID, right? It doesn't really matter. Then review doesn't need to have name and descriptions. I'm going to delete all of that. And for the rating, I want to add a annotation here. I'm going to say range, and I'm going to do a control dot to import the data annotations namespace. And now I'm going to say minimum 1, the highest at 5. And of course, we can have a error message, and we can say that something like rating must between 1 and 5 stars. Right? And do we want to have a date? Yes, we can have a date. I'm not going to deal with updating reviews. If you want, you can deal with that, but I'm not going to deal with that in this project. And the date, because I'm not dealing with update, so I'm just gonna say review date. Okay, so it's clear. And I'm not gonna use UTC. I'm gonna use just regular in the same time zone. I'm not gonna deal with, I explained this before. Okay, now what I also need, of course, other than the rating, I want to have not a description, but I'm gonna call it review text. So let's use prop and then string question mark, and I'm going to say review text. It's optional because the user can just provide the rating without the description, without the text, right? Next one is I'm going to connect this to a organizer. Actually, let's create it below here, and I'm going to say prop Oh, the organizer ID is right here. Okay, it's good. Organizer ID is here. So this is connecting to a organizer. And then we want to have this is going to be, I'm going to use JSON ignore. So this is a navigation property and the type is actually user, right? And we don't have to do this. Now, we also need to connect this to the reviewer's user ID. Right, so let's have a reviewer user ID. Oh, we remove that semicolon there. And now we want to have another navigation property. And this is the reviewer, right? Reviewer user. That's good. And finally, we have this review date, but it's already here. So we have this organizer review entity created. Now this needs to be also linked to the user. Okay, so let's go over here to create the navigation properties here and let's minimize this. It's trying to generate something for me. Let's accept it. So organizer reviews, that's good. And this links to organizer review, right? So this links to the organizer. Now we're going to have another one which is similar. Let's copy and paste it. So instead of this is also organizer review, but I'm not going to call it organizer reviews. I'm going to call it reviews left by user. Right, this is reviews left by user because from a user, if the user is organizer, then it's going to go to this navigation property to find all of the reviews that belong to the organizer and that is reviewed to the organizer. Now, this navigation property is targeting a reviewer. So what are all of the reviews that are written by or provided by this particular user, this particular reviewer? And that's why I call it reviews left by this user. Or maybe let's call it reviews written. This is probably better. Okay, so we have all of this, and then we need to go ahead and try to work on this application DB context here, because here we're going to set up the relationship. Oh, before we set up relationship, of course, we got to add a DB set, which stands for a database table here, and it is about the organizer review, and we're going to call it organizer reviews. Now I'm going to go from middle because this is a many-to-many relationship. We're going to go from middle, right? And I'm going to say it has one. I'm going to say R goes to, so a review has one organizer. It has many organizer reviews from the user table. This is from the user side. That's why it says user organizer of the reviews. It has many organizer reviews. And then we set up the foreign key. The foreign key is the organizer ID. Now we're going to do it again, but this time we pick up the reviewer side. And it says one review has one reviewer user. Yeah, that's what we called it. And one reviewer user has many reviews read it and has a foreign key. And this foreign key is the reviewer user ID. So now we set up the many to many relationship here. Okay, that's good. Now let's go back to our slice where we didn't finish yet. So it's this one, right? Here, we will need to actually load the organizers, to load the organizer and the reviews. So because of that, let's go ahead and try to create a service that corresponds to the slice. And let's create a class. And this class follows the pattern of the name of the folder, which is the name of the slice, right? So call it view organizer reviews service. And of course, we want to dependency inject in the context factory. It is for application DB context, and this is going to be called context factory. Again, let's minimize this thing and do control dot to import namespace to initialize the field, and then go down over here. We need to first of all do a simple thing. We need to grab the user. So I'm going to say async task, and I'm going to return user and control dot to import the namespace here. And I'm going to say get user async. I actually get user by ID async, and that's pretty good. It's generating everything for me. And do I need to include all of this? No. This purpose of doing this is just to get the username. That's the only purpose there. Okay, so this is good. And this, you have seen this duplicated in different slices, and I have gone over this. I think it's fine to duplicate this because look at the code. We're basically just using Entity Framework Core. It's not that this method does anything and we can't duplicate it. All of the functionality is already encapsulated inside the Entity Framework Core APIs, so we can just use it, right? We're not actually duplicating it because the functionality is not in the code that we are writing. Okay, so next function is we need to get the organizer's reviews. So public and, oh, it's already listening to me. Okay, so get organizer reviews async, and we're passing the organizer ID. And then it's trying to do this for me. This is correct. We're including the reviewer and we're loading the organizer based on ID. So why do we need to include the reviewer? So this is going to be actually a method and going to be used in the future, right? We haven't actually created this yet because we're trying to load all of the reviews for this particular organizer, right? And we need to know which user actually wrote the review. We need to display the name of that user. That's why we're including the reviewer user, right? And then the next method is going to be more related to us, and this is trying to generate something. Let's see whether it works or not. So get reviews written by user async. This is not the one. I want to get organizer average ratings. So get organizer average ratings by organizer ID. And it's already started writing this for me. And get organizer average ratings, passing the ID, creating the context, that's good. And then it's trying to get, I can have a better way to do this, I believe so, right? So I want to first of all load the review count. Now I don't know what it is going to do something for me or not. If not, I'm going to start writing it. So I'm going to say review count equals to, let's accept this and see. So I'm going to say, I'm just going to use count async and then organizer equals organizer ID. So this is good enough. Okay. And next we're going to load the average rating, So rating equals to, let's check this, organizer ID equals to organizer ID, average async. I think this would work. Okay. So we have this average rating here, and I want to actually round the average rating. Okay. Because in our system, I don't have a split of the star. I don't want to show a half star. I just want to show a full star, just to simplify a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to just round the average rating to the nearest integer. Okay, so if it's 2.5 or higher, then round up. Right? Otherwise, round down. And it doesn't generate this for me. That's fine. I'm going to write it myself. Average review equals, I'm going to use mass.round, and I'm going to round the average rating, and we use midpoint rounding dot away from 0. So this is good. This is the review I want to, this is the rounding I want, but assigned to the wrong variable. Okay. Now I want to return both the rating as well as the review count. So therefore the return type has to be changed to a tuple. I'm going to say integer, and the first one is review count. The second one is average rating. So average rating, and finish with a bracket. Now, finally, we're going to return the tuple. The first one is review count. Just make sure it corresponds correctly. And then we have average rating as an integer. All right, that's good enough. Let's go back to our original component over here. And let's start implementing this onParameter set method here. So first of all, we want to get the organizer, right? And of course here, we got to add async keyword, and here we're going to say not view event service. Let's remove this. We have that service, and we got to inject the service into it. It's the view organizer reviews service. Let's copy that over here, and we're going to get user ID by ID async. So that's the organizer. And then we're going to call this view organizer review service, and we're going to say get organizer average rating. This is what we want, and we provide the organizer ID. Okay. Now let's get a result from it with a await keyword here. And this is the continuation of the asynchronous method here. Okay. So in the result, we have two elements. The first one is count, the second one is average review. So therefore, we're going to say total reviews is result review count. And then average rating is result average rating. Okay, so we fulfilled all of these variables with data. It's going to be able to display the proper information here. The only thing is that we don't have anything to display. But if we try to add a migration, we're going to create a database table and say add organizer reviews. All right, I'm gonna say update database. And now I'm gonna open up SQL Server Management Studio. I want to check this warning here. Could not create constraint or index, see previous error, introducing foreign key constraint. Organizer user review ID on table organizer reviews may cause a cycles of multiple cascade paths, specify on delete on path, or modify other foreign key constraint. So is this throwing an error for me? Failed to do this. Okay, so it wasn't successful. So by looking at this error, it looks pretty obvious what is happening. We are referencing the same table, basically the same entity, which is the user entity, with two different foreign keys, right? We have in the organizer review, we have the reviewer user ID, and we have the organizer ID. So the server might be getting confused when user is being deleted and then tries to cascade that delete. And therefore, it provided here in the error message here, it provided that specify on delete no action or on update no action. This would help to solve that problem. So let's go to application DB context over here. So we added these two to set up the relationship, the many-to-many relationship, right? And here we can specify the behavior. So when we delete an organizer, what do we want to delete? Do we want to delete all of the reviews? When we delete the organizer, of course, we want to delete all of the reviews. But when we delete a reviewer user, we don't actually want to delete the reviews. We want to keep the reviews. So we can set no action, right? So I think this is what the error message meant. So this change, let's try to see whether we can make it succeed. Let's do a update database again. Okay, so it again says there's error messages. So the same error messages. So what we do is I'm going to actually manually delete the last added migration, and then we're going to recreate the migration. Okay, I'm going to call it with the same name and enter. Okay, the new migration is created. We can actually take a look at the migration, right? So there's something, the migration actually run before, it looks like. So this record is already here. For some reason, it might be because Visual Studio didn't report to us, or maybe this is my testing record because a few days ago, I actually tested this whole process before I demonstrate this to you. So I'm going to delete the last record, and the migration ID is going to be equal to this. I'm going to copy this thing over and paste it over here. And also, I want to make sure that we don't actually have the table yet. So let's refresh. And do you actually see the reviews table? We don't. It was probably really just because I forgot to delete the migration history. Okay, so let's try to now add the migration again. Did I delete the migration? I'm gonna undo check out this one as well. Do changes, and let's see what's gonna happen if we add the migration again. All right, so now we have a new migration, and this time it looks correct. We're adding a new table, right? And we're specifying the foreign key, and we have a cascading delete for the organizers. And now we have another foreign key, but for this one, there's no delete action specified. So this should be okay. Let's run the database update to see what happens this time. Okay, everything is done properly. Let's take a look. First of all, the migration is added right now, and then we should have a new table created over here, and that's organizer reviews, and it's an empty table now. So in order to actually add a review, I'm gonna just manually add let's say this one is 4, and the reviewer text is good, and what is this one? This is review date, which is today's date. I'm gonna say 2025/05/28, and the organizer ID, I'm gonna say 1. And what is the review? This is the review user ID. Organizer ID is 1, and then the reviewer ID, I'm gonna say number 2. Okay, they're different users. All right, now let's try to run our application and see whether we can get some reviews. Okay, let's look at, okay, we got an error here. Let's go to console. It says cannot provide a value for property. Oh, because we didn't inject the service. Yes. Let's go over here, copy the class name, and let's inject that into the program.ts file. and we add transient and import namespace with control dot. And now let's run again. And it says there is an error. It has this familiar error. We got to do a .NET build. I don't know why this is happening. It says that there's some duplicate resources, but I cannot find it anywhere in my project. Okay, let's run it again. Okay, so as you can see, we have a 1 review and 4 stars. That looks pretty good. Everything here looks pretty good, right? We got to delete this, close that. Okay, so we have 1 review, and it's better if we have more reviews, but unfortunately we don't have more than 1 user. So let's actually register another user. I'm gonna log in with a different account. So I'm gonna choose the 3rd user here. All right, now we should have another user, and this user's user ID is 4. So let's say that this user gives a 2-star rating, not well executed. And let's say this one was given this year, but in February, maybe on February 29th. Is there 29? Let's make it safer, 27th. And then this is the same event, organizer number 1, the same organizer, and the user is number 3. Okay, and now if we look at this, we have 2 reviews. One is, oh, this is not implemented. One is 2-star, the other one is 4-star, right? So 2 plus 4 divided by 2 is 3. So we're showing 3 stars. That's correct calculation, and totally we have 2 reviews. So this looks pretty good, right? And we go to this event. We have the same organizer created this event, so therefore it's also showing this. So far everything looks perfect. So next one, we're gonna create this page where we can actually see the review and we can leave a review, right? So let's go ahead and create that. Okay, so now let's work on the actual view organizer reviews component, because in our view organizer reviews we created a reusable component. This component is used in the view event component right here to show the stars. Now let's go ahead and create a list of reviews to show a list of reviews against a particular organizer. So let's go ahead and create a razor component, and this time, following the convention, we're going to call it view organizer reviews component. Okay, this is the same name as the folder name, which is the slice name. And here, what do you want to call it? Maybe we're not even going to display this title here. Let's go ahead and say that we're gonna have 3, yes, but I want to say this is reviews for a particular organizer, right? So we are going to have a private field, and we're going to have a user. This is the organizer, and control dot to import in space, and we're going to show the name of the organizer here. Here's a green screen line. We can actually get rid of that by using the question mark here. And after we show that, we can have a div, right? And again, it's going to be a flex box, and we are going to also align that to the center. So justify content center, and we have a margin on the bottom. We have 3. Okay, so within this, we're gonna show a link. We're gonna say a, and we're gonna have class. This is gonna be a button, okay, and it's going to be a button for the users to actually leave a review here. And it's gonna point to the same URL, so org, and then we have organizer, right? And organizer, not this one. See here, we need a parameter, and this parameter is gonna give us the organizer ID. So we don't need to get the organizer ID from the organizer object, right? And here I'm gonna have the same thing. This is going to actually not the same URL. This is the leave review URL, where it's going to go to just one page, and then you can fill up the form. It's going to be an added form there where we allow the user to actually write a review and provide a rating. Okay, now here we're going to check whether we have any reviews. We don't have the reviews variable now, but we can write it without defining it first. Let's actually define it. Okay, so here we're going to have the list of reviews just like this, and we're going to do a control dot import control dot organizer review. Why it doesn't help me to, that's weird. So it's already pointing to this. I'm going to use this unless I call it wrong. Oh, this is because this is bad. I had a wrong name here. Anyways, I don't want to rerun the migration, so we're going to just call it, I'm going to use the typo one, the one with typo. Okay, so we have this, and then we're going to override the parameter async set here, and then within it we will get the organizer, right? This is the same thing we used before, and the other component we can dependency inject it in, and then once we got the organizer, this is async, right? So let's go to the top, and we're gonna have async, and then here we have await. And what is it complaining about? Because I added results, this is not necessary. And secondly, we want to get the reviews, and we did implement this, right? We're getting all of the reviews, including the review user. I explained this because we wanted to show who actually reviewed, who actually wrote the review, and that's why we included. So we have the review, and then we're going to show the review here. So if the review is now, for the time being, we are going to display this loading reviews, right? We're going to inform the user that the system is trying to load the reviews because we're using async method here. So this is possible. Now, otherwise, we have the review. Now, let's create a container first, right? So container, and then we're going to create a row inside it. So div class. But whenever you have a row, you might want to create a container to contain the row. So I'm going to have a for each, and then for each review inside the review, let's delete all of that and just close this bracket. Now it looks clear now. Now we want to create a card. I want to create a card to wrap around the review so that it looks clear. Each review is clearly separated. So we have class, and then we say card, and then we have a bottom margin, and within that we have the card body. I'm going to change this to H6, and card, I'm going to say subtitle. We don't need a big title like that. And then the text is going to be muted for this one, and we're going to say review. So this review is by reviewer user dot name, right? Now let's continue with this. So we have a card body here, and let's close the div. And inside this div, did I delete something that I shouldn't delete? Delete reviewer's name. Yeah, I shouldn't delete this. Let's close the div. And then within this, we should have another div. So this one also has the stars class here, and we're gonna have the same kind of thing as the other one. So let's copy and paste it. So I would say this is pretty simple. We can definitely repeat it. Okay, we're just looping through and create a span. And in here, we don't have an average rating. We're not looking for an average rating. We are looking at the review object, which is right here. Looking at that review object, and we're looking at the rating. And if it's smaller or equal to that, it will be selected. Otherwise, there's no class here. And for this one, we can use review dot with a question mark to remove the green screen line. Okay, so we have this, and outside of the stars, which is the place where we can show the actual review text, and we can say this is card text, right? And with a margin top. And again, we're going to use the review object here, and we're going to show the review text if there is anything here. Okay, so this would be, I think it would be enough in order to show. So let's actually review this. Yeah, I think this is enough. And this is going to be a page directive. So I'm going to say page, and I'm going to use the URL that we specified here. And this is the organizer here, and it's integer / reviews. Okay, now we have this page. We have already 2 reviews. Let's see whether we can have this thing displayed. Okay, let's check this one. Doesn't matter which one we check, we're just checking the reviews for the organizer, right? And we have this leave a review button, which takes us to another page, which we haven't created yet. And see, we have some reviews here, and we have 2 reviews, and each one of them has a actual review text. And this page is publicly available, so everybody can see it. We don't need to use the authorized attribute to protect it. Now let's continue with the page where we can actually leave a review, which is this one, /org/ the organizer ID /leave a review. So this page needs to be protected. So this is another different functionality here, right? So this is the view organizer's review. This is a viewing functionality, whereas leaving reviews, creating functionality, right? It's creating functionality. So let's go ahead and create another slice. and I want to call it leave review. Let's call it leave review. So let's go ahead and create a component here, and we're gonna call it leave review component here, and click on add button. So here I'm gonna say leave review, and then I'm gonna say for. This is the place where we can also get the organizer information. So let's go ahead and try to do that. We have a parameter, and this is going to be a integer, so organizer ID, and of course this is a page directive. That means a page component, so we can use a page directive. So /org/organizer ID, and it will be integer, and we say leave review. Okay, and then on parameter set, we can try to populate this private field here. And let's have a private field, and this is user, and same thing, import namespace. So it is a organizer, right? And we can say the organizer is equal to, we need to create another service here. So this is leave review service.cs, and again dependency injection idb context factory. The more you write it, the more you remember it. So let's don't get lazy, just write it ourselves instead of copying from other places. So context factory here, I don't want to write the plumbing code. That's pretty tedious. So I'm just using control dot Visual Studio functionality to just populate it. Now we're getting the user. So get the organizer from the users table by ID. So let's try to get the user. So it should be async method, right? So async task, and then we wrap a user and import namespace. In here we say get user async by ID and integer organizer ID. It get lazy, or I get lazy, it doesn't really matter. Someone is getting lazy. Because someone is getting lazy, so someone has to do the lazy thing. Where is my lazy stuff? I can't even find it. So we create a new folder there, which is view organizer review, and then we go inside here. This is the same thing. Why don't we just copy this whole thing over? We mentioned that it's okay to have this duplication here. We're using entity from core. We're not creating everything ourselves anyways. That's my rationale. That could be a rationale behind a wrong behavior. The criminal usually have a reason to commit something bad. I have a reason too, but I think it's a sound reason, and plus it's not that bad, right? We're only duplicating these two lines, right? In a perfect world, these two lines can be saved, doesn't have to duplicate it, but we want to have vertical slice architecture. There has to be a balance between the separation and centralization. I'm still trying to find that balance, and for now I'm settled on this idea that if we only relying on something else, in this case entity from core, to get something very simple, right? The main functionality is within entity from core, then I'm okay with that. I'm okay with this duplication. Okay, now I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go to leave review component, and I'm gonna inject that inside over here into this component, right? So view organizer, it's not view organizer anymore, it's leave. I don't know why it doesn't give me leave review service. So we're gonna have this leave review service over here, and we're getting that generated for me. Okay, now the result, we want to use async. So here we use await. I do have a multithreading and asynchronous programming in C. It's ranked pretty well on the C category. The C category is pretty big, so it's ranked on the first page. So look for it. It's gonna give you tremendous help if you're willing to invest your energy into the multithreading and asynchronous programming world. So we got the organizer now, right? And I want to display that organizer name here. So I'm gonna say organizer.name, and it's a question mark one. So nullable, and I use question mark to remove that green squiggly line there. Now I can continue writing the rest of the code. Okay. Now I want to have a separation here, and I'm going to create a margin at the bottom to leave some space there. Now I want to have an added form here, right? I want to have an added form here. So I'm going to say added form, and the model is going to be on review. Therefore, I'm going to go down actually, and I'm going to create this private field. So this is going to be a organizer review thing with a typo there. And should I call it new review or should I just call it review? Let's just call it review. Okay, of course it's a new review. And then this edit form is going to be bound to that. So I'm going to say model equals review. And then over here, I'm going to say valid submit. So when I submit it, I'm going to say handle a review submission. We don't have a invalid submit, so we don't need to worry about the other one. So here, let's complete this one. I don't know whether I'm going to use void or not. I'm going to just write this over here and just clear this, leave this as an empty method, and then continue with the form here. Okay, and we do want to have data annotations, okay? And we do want to have valid summary here, and we can use alert and no text center, but maybe alert dash. And now inside here, we want to collect a rating and we want to collect the review text. Collecting the rating is tricky because we want to use stars, but collecting the text is easy. So let's do the easy thing. So here it gives me this. I don't need it. Let me write something. Right. So collect the review text, and then I'm gonna do a Control C and hopefully generate that for me. So review text. Right. That's good. Form label. Good. And I'm gonna say your review. And I'm going to say optional. Input text area, we do need to have that, and it's going to be using form control. That's good. It's going to be bound to review, and our review is nullable again. So I don't know why it's doing this. I guess it doesn't like the question mark. So here, there's too many properties here. I'm going to separate it into different lines here. And then this bind thing, after that, we're going to have rows. Let's set to by default 5 rows. And then we have a placeholder. And let's say share your thoughts about the organizer. And we finish this input text area. We have this validation message here. That's pretty good. And then perhaps there is a problem here because it didn't actually close it. Now we want to actually collect the rating. It's going to be harder, but first of all, let's close it. That's okay with a margin at the bottom with a 3. And this is for rating. We have a rating property here. So for rating, ID is rating. That's okay. And form label, that's okay. And let's use a block here. And I'm going to say set rating between 1 to 5, and perhaps I don't need to have this 1 to 5 because it's going to be, we're going to show 5 different stars here. So instead of using this input thing and validation message, let's keep the validation message there and use different things here for collecting the rating. So we will have a div, and this div ID is going to be reading. Let's close that div first. In class, I'm going to have a flexbox, and again, everything aligned properly. And now this is the place where, let's do it properly. Okay, this is the place where we also do that 5-star thing, and it's trying to generate that for me. Let's go outside of this so we can see clearly. So from 1 to 5, right, we're doing this. And then I'm going to have a star index, right, equal to I. We need this to capture the current value. Okay, and then we're going to write the span thing. So we have a class in star, and the thing is similar, right? If the review rating is bigger than I, then it's selected. Otherwise, it's empty. But we need to have another expression here. This is for hovering effect. So if I is less than hover rating. So we will need to create a hover rating soon, but let's finish this. Then we're going to have a hovered star. See, hover star is different than the regular gold star. So let's finish this and then click. So see, this whole thing is for class. Right, now we're dealing with onClick. onClick, we're going to set, let's have a method here. We're going to set the star index, and we're going to implement this set rating method later. Okay, now and handle another action which is almost over and with a sign. So this is C#. And now we are going to call this star hover. Again, we're going to pass in the star index. And finally, we have mouse. We're going to handle on mouse out. And here, I'm going to say star mouse out. And we're going to show the star just like this, the same type of star. And after this span, so after this, we are going to have a validation message right inside here. And this is going to, yeah, we're going to have a class for the validation message. So text ginger. And we're going to copy this and paste it here as well. We're going to keep them consistent. Okay, let's try to implement some of these. I don't want to see the red squiggly lines because Blazor syntax doesn't handle these red squiggly lines well enough. Okay, let's try to implement, at least give them some empty method here. So I'm going to say private void set rating. We'll pass in the rating. And then we have review.rating equals rating. That's pretty straightforward. And we also have hover rating equals to rating as well. And we want to keep the state. But of course, we didn't declare it yet. So when I say hover rating equals, we don't have to set it to 0. The default is 0. And then let's try to work with that. So we have set rating. We're setting the rating and the hover rating. Okay. And also we have on star over, on star, and we have rating. So here we're only setting the hover rating. And then we have the on star mouse out. And that's when we want to recover or revert to the selected rating if there is any. So I'm going to say review.rating, because here this review, when it's created by default, is 0. Right? So if nothing is selected yet, then this review rating is going to be 0. Okay, now you don't see the red squiggly line, so we can work on this again. Now let's clear these lines and scroll down here. So we are collecting the review text here, and we are collecting the stars there. Now finally, we want to have a submit button. So let's have a button here, and the type is going to be a submit, and class is going to be btn. Let's use primary button, and it's going to be a large button. So disabled, we don't want to submit this multiple times, so we may want to handle the possibility of something is being submitted, but let's see whether we need to do that or not. Okay, so inside here we're going to say submit review. So when this button is being clicked on, the form is going to be submitted, and when that happens, this is going to be called, right? So let's work on this handle review submission. So when that happens, we're going to say this.review. We need to provide a date. So we're going to say date time now, and then we want to call the service review method, which we didn't create yet. So let's go in here and try to create that. So public async task, let's get it to return something, whether it's successful or not. So we can call it review organizer async, and then we are going to provide that organizer review object inside here. And we're gonna check if the review is null, or if it's less than, yeah, this is okay. And the reviewer ID, of course, we don't want them to be smaller or equal to 0, but at the same time, we also want to check, well, there's so many different things we want to check here. So let me break this down into different lines. And then over here, I'm going to say if review, why this is spelled differently? It's just because I had a typo, so it started to follow my step. Okay, so review. So here we want to check whether the review rating is smaller than 1, or the review rating is greater than 5. Right? Or there's a possibility that the reviewer user ID is the same as review.organizer ID. So we don't want this to happen. We don't want the organizer to review himself or herself. Okay? And when this passes the validation here, we're going to create the context. We're going to create a context. And then here, want to check, let's say whether this is good. Check if the reviewer has already reviewed the organizer. Yeah, this is a good check. Let's see whether it generated anything properly. I don't think I need to actually get it. So I'm going to use any async if the organizer's ID equals to the reviewer organizer ID and reviewer organizer ID equals to the reviewer organizer ID. Then it's going to return true. So if this one gives me true, I'm going to return false. So this is bad. We don't want that to happen. So before that, we want to check if the reviewer has attended any events organized by this organizer, because you don't have the qualification to actually review any organizer. You have to review the ones that you actually attended. So let's see what it generates. Has attended events. And now it's smart enough to use any, because I don't care about the actual events. But the condition here is basically checking, are there any RSVPs whose user ID is reviewer ID and the organizer ID is organizer ID. I don't think this is enough. I don't think that's enough. Again, let's break into different lines. I also need to make sure that the event date is in the past. So that's why we want to include the event. And I'm going to say our event. But this is weird. Yeah, it needs to include the event anyways because it's trying to reference the organizer of the event, the organizer ID of the event already, right? So here we need to get the date of the event. So I'm going to say end date. So we're worrying about the end date and when I use date only dot from datetime and I'm going to say datetime dot now, right? We're checking the end date to see whether it's in the past. And then we also want to check, maybe we don't need to check it from here, but here, when we are checking the RSVP, we want to check that the status of the RSVP is actually going because we don't have a attended status, right? So shared helper, we have a going status. We don't have a attended. We didn't implement the attendance tracking yet. And I don't think I'm going to implement that. But at least we can use the going status and also we double check that the event has already happened for someone who has already RSVP'd. So we're assuming that a person has attended the event, right? It's probably not too fair for the organizer. And if we want it to be truer, then we need to implement attendance tracking, okay? And if we have a attendance tracking mechanism, then we can use the status and the status of that RSVP will become attended. Then it's better. So let's try to review. Okay. So we have RSVP and we want to make sure that the user ID of that RSVP is the reviewer's user ID. That's okay. And we also need to make sure that RSVP status is going status. And at the same time, that RSVP event organizer needs to be the organizer that we are reviewing. And at the same time, that event has to be in the past. I think we are good. And I don't need to have this variable here. I can just use if, right? And if this happens, we're going to return false, right? So it's good. It's critical to do this type of validation. Otherwise, you would collect a lot of invalid reviews, and that's pretty bad for your system. Okay, now we have a proper review. We're going to add that to the review collection. And finally, we're going to save that review and return true. Okay, now let's copy this method. Let's come back and inject. We already injected. Okay, so here, why this doesn't like it? Oh no, this is supposed to be review date. Review. We have a review date, remember? We have a wrong spelling. Okay, anyways. And here, we can use a try catch, right? We're trying to review, and this is actually pretty critical functionality. We don't want to have problems with reviewing, right? Otherwise, we're going to have problems with the organizer and the problem probably with the end user as well, right? Eventually, it's going to affect our system, the one is going to use it. So we want to be very careful with this. So what I want is to, first of all, is to check this. So review, and this is the review, leave a review, right? So leave review, service, review, organizer async. And we provide this dot review to it. See, I need to think about, first of all, this is async. I need to think about what happens after this. So after a review, where do I take the user to? I'm thinking about keeping the user on the same page or just display a message. Right? Display a message to let the user know that your review has been submitted successfully. Right? So therefore, I'm going to come to the top and I'm going to say boolean and show success message. Yeah, false. And then I'm going to say show error message, false. And then over here, after reviewing, I'm going to say show success message is true, and then show error message is false, right? And otherwise, what happens otherwise? We're going to reverse this. I'm going to show error message. So this is false, and the error message one is true. Now here, we want to clear basically just reset the form after submission, right? So generate this whole thing for me, and now when it's generating this, it reminds me about the realization of this. And first of all, why this is on after render? I probably got it wrong. I didn't pay attention. It's supposed to be on parameter set async, and we're getting this organizer over here, and it's supposed to be async. And also we want to initialize this. That's why I thought about it. I don't know whether, no, I don't want this reviewer ID to be the same as the organizer ID. And everything else I would want to, yeah, everything else I can leave it as by default, except actually there's another one. The reviewer, yes, the reviewer user ID. So this one comes from, but basically this is the logon user, and we can use the base user ID, which we don't have it yet, but let's inherit. Okay, let's inherit from here. So inherit base component, and now okay, but we want to do a parse. And now when we reset it, and this one can be set to organizer ID, and this one we can set it to the same thing. And of course the hover rating reset to 0. Now when we have exception, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to show the error, something's wrong. And finally here, we probably don't need to do finally. Okay, so now let's try to inject this in the program CS file, and let's see how it looks like. And of course we have errors here. Okay, so remove this, run it again. It looks like it is running. Okay, we're seeing this. And actually let's delete the reviews. I want to say delete from reviews, organizer reviews. It's probably not connected. Okay, now it asks me to connect. Organizer reviews. I don't know where I spell it wrong. Oh, it's about this one. The typo. Still not right. Oh, removing this I. Still not right. That's pretty bad. Let's copy this. Invalid object. How? Oh, I selected the wrong database. Okay, now it's good. And let's go over here. Already giving me problems. It says sequence contains no elements. What are we trying to do here? Get organizer average rating. View organizer review service. Okay, it's the one that we created before, and this is in the organizer average rating. So get organizer average rating here, and it's line 40, right? View organizer review service, line 40. It is this one. It's because there's no rating and we're trying to do the average. Let's do this. Let's declare a review count and declare an average count. And then we can do this and do that. But then what is happening here? I don't know why this wasn't retained there. Okay, now we're going to test whether we have review count. So only when we have a review count do we actually do the average operation here. And then, oh, we gotta have a double here. That's it. Let's see whether this one works or not. We need to do our thing, .NET build. Now let's run it. Okay, so now it doesn't give me any error when I look at this 0 reviews thing, right? I can go here and then I can click on leave a review. And when I do that, it doesn't do anything because I'm missing some CSS styles, right? We're missing some CSS styles there. So let's go to our leave a review thing here and let's check. We have this hover star, right? We got to implement this. And to do this, we can use CSS isolation because this doesn't happen everywhere. It's just only in this component. So we're going to create a new item and I'm going to call this CSS. Click on that. You see it becomes part of this page, this reader component. Now I'm going to say start hovered star, and we want the color to be orange and a different color from the gold, right? And then the cursor would be pointer. Let's see how this goes. Did it go wrong again? And the same issue. So let's do .NET build. All right, let's run it. Now, if I hover, you can see we have different actions going on here, right? That's pretty good. Let's leave a number 4 and you can see the star stays, and I can change it to 3. I can change it to 2. We got to test all of these functionalities, right? So let's say I'm going to leave a good star, so 5 star, and then say this is a good organizer, right? And then if I just leave a comment right now, click on this, I don't know what happened. Oh, because I didn't implement. God, I forgot the whole thing. So first of all, let's see whether we have anything. We do have the reviews, but we want to delete it. So delete from this table, and then let's come back to here. So we had that show messages and all those stuff. We didn't use it. So I want to show if show success message. We can say something like, we have if, and then we can say thank you for your, right? And then we can have a button to say you can go back. The type is a regular button. This is not a hover like a dialog, right? So we're not gonna actually close it. So maybe not a button. Maybe just take the user back. Go to home page. Okay, still a button. Let's use button close. And I say back to events, something like that. And maybe here we can say alert, and we can have alert dash success. Now here, otherwise, if show error message is here, then we have alert danger, an error occurred. I don't know why I generated these things, but at the end, if otherwise, I'm gonna put this thing inside the else. Did I have added? Oh, left this inside, outside. Good thing, do a control F. So this goes here. Okay, maybe outside of this, let's use something. Let's say this is a card. Let's create a border, right? And let's add some shadow. And I'm gonna take this div all the way to the bottom. Yeah, let's finish that. So this should be okay now. Okay, now you can see we have this better looking leave review for someone. We can change the style a little bit. Leave review, where is it? Leave review for me. Let's see whether it does anything better. Okay, highlight it. And then I can leave a review. Let's say Frank is great. And then let's see when I submit. Back to events is displayed right here. That's because I use the wrong class. Just say alert success. I gotta use primary, otherwise it's showing the wrong button there. I should have I left a review, so I gotta delete it and try again. And then I can click on back to events. Right, so there's already one review, and this is from a different user. Now, if I delete it and refresh, now it becomes 0. I come here and I can leave again. So this time, if I don't provide any star here and I just click on submit, so it did give me this error message, which is pretty good, right? So if I say 3 and say not impressed, go back to events, and we can see this 3-star, and we can see the review here. Okay, one thing that I can remember this leave review link here, right? And then if I log out, I paste this URL here, I can review any organizer. Why? Information, the input stream was not in the correct format. 86. Leave review component line 86. Let's check what's happening here. Oh, this, because I didn't log in, so it doesn't have a number. That's why. Okay, so you can use this to prevent the user. Maybe you can do a try parse, right? Another thing is better. It's probably we just use attributes and we can say authorize. I don't know why it's so painful to write this. It doesn't just give me correct intelligence here. And let's see whether this is painful to actually implement this authorization. Okay, so it kicks me to Google because our challenge scheme is Google. Right? And if I click on this, now it has an overflow. Value was either too large or too small. So that's pretty weird. And I guess it's the same thing. It's happening over here. Is it over here? I believe line 89. Yeah, it's over here. It's trying to get this. Let's run debug. I logged in, so let's log out again, and I'm gonna paste this URL again, and it's gonna kick me out. So I select a user. Now I'm here, and let's step through this. So we have a user ID, but this number, look at this number. This is a huge number. So why is this happening like this? Let's check base. Quick watch. I'm gonna say base is authenticated, and it says base authenticated is true. So why the heck the user ID is wrong? Ah, okay. I think I know the reason why it's wrong. That when we implement the authentication here, right? We have this endpoint, authentication endpoint, and we have this handle sign in, callback, and only inside this method here do we actually assign a user ID. So in this case, this handle sign in callback is not being triggered. For some reason, it's not being triggered because the redirect URL, see the redirect URL for organizer authentication here is this, and the redirect URL for a regular user is this. So in both places, this method is being triggered. See here and here, right? But in this case, because we triggered the authorization process with the authentication middleware, we triggered the challenge process with the authentication middleware. So in that case, we don't have this URL specified. The redirect back URL, that redirect URL is the page itself. In that case, it's the /org/organizer ID /leave-review, right? So therefore, this method is not being triggered, and that's a problem. And I think that we're going to solve that problem in the next video because we're already recording for, I don't know, maybe 2 hours already. So I'm going to shut it down and edit the video and then publish on YouTube. And then in the next video, we're going to solve the problem of the authentication process. But for the time being, let's actually remove the authorize attribute over here and let's call it done. Okay, I'll see you in the next video.